So they say every marathon starts with the first step. This isn't exactly a marathon, but it's the start of the building of the Super Sinbad 93-inch. Started this in January 2018. You can see the start of the fuselage going together. Went together quite quickly actually. Some of the parts came pre-made. This was a partial kit that I bought on eBay. There's the tailplane there, some of the parts there going together. I missed out on a few pictures. Here's quite a bit of the fuselage put together and just lining up the tailplane. I changed the design a little bit and put the tailplane a little bit lower down on the fuselage and made it removable. The plan being that there'd be rubber bands holding the tailplane in place, allowing it to be removed to help with transport and storage. I got the fin in place there. I'm just getting it lined up with a square to make sure that it's all nice and square so that when it's finished it's the right shape. Tried to do quite a bit of lightening of the structure to keep the weight down as much as possible. It's quite a long moment arm on this fuselage, and of course any tail weight needs to be compensated with extra lead in the nose. That was a concern of mine because it's got quite a short nose in this model, so it worked out quite well. I used carbon push rods for the rudder and elevator. You can see them routing down through the fuselage. Got some holes in the frames which act as stabilization and guidance for these rods. And there you can see the underside of the tailplane. Just got some sheeting which goes on the bottom side of the fuselage where the tailplane sits to give it the strength where the dowels are, and the rubber bands are in place to secure the tailplane. Here we can see the nose, just a standard 2-servo installation, rudder and elevator. There the carbon rods again running through small holes in the frames to keep them stable. This has actually worked out quite well. There's no sort of bending or slack at all. There you can see the slot for the tailplane. Did some laminated wingtips and on the tailplane and on the fin. This is the trailing edge of the elevator there. I put the laminations all the way around the trailing edge to try and prevent any tendency to split if I have an accident. Here's some more photographs of the fuselage. There's the fin there. This was before I laminated the tip on the top, and this is a view back from the cockpit looking aft just as the carbon rods come through. There's a gluing process going on down at the tail there to make sure that everything's nice and tight. Here we got the start of the wing construction. It's got quite a lot of undercamber on the wing, so you need to build it in a certain order so that you can get everything, you get a good glue contact with all the joints. That's the inboard end of the wing, and there you can see the sheeting, the top sheeting going on. And this is one of the first assembly pictures. I like to motivate myself when the model's progressing along to put it together and see what it looks like, and it spurs me on to continue the build. So this was back in February 2018. Here's some photographs now of the main wing center section. The wing splits in two, again to help with storage, and it's just a carbon rod and a carbon tube that I put in, which is actually holding or connecting the two wings together. The wings actually held onto the fuselage with rubber bands, but there you can see the carbon tube which is glued in. There's quite a bit of dihedra on this model. I was quite concerned. There's only a short tube to support the wing. Actually, it only goes to the first rib out from the centre line, and I was wondering if that would be strong enough or not. I would have preferred to have had it a bit longer, but because of the dihedral, if you had it any longer, it would be poking out of the underside of the wing. So you're kind of stuck with it. And I've flown the model quite a bit now, and I haven't really been pulling any G with it. It's not that type of model, but it hasn't shown any tendency to buckle or bend actually, so it's worked quite well so far. Here's some cockpit pictures which I did just to try and give it a little bit of a scale appearance. Of course it isn't a scale model, but it's nice to make it look like it could have been a model of a real aircraft. Again, here's some more pictures taken out on the terrace before the covering was done. Here are a couple of pictures of the first maiden flight. This was in May, so spent a few months building it actually. It wasn't obviously building all of the time, but it did go together quite quickly. But I wanted to do a good job, and I spent a bit of time to make sure that it was all nice and straight and true, and keeping the weight down as well. This is at my local slope, which is on the coast, and it's a nice area to fly. It's where I normally fly. Here's some more pictures that I took once I'd finished all the trim, and I got a name for it. I bought a name. You can get these printed on lots of people selling prints or stickers rather that you can buy on eBay, and so I got the Super Sinbad name put on the nose. And here we are. Here's the first flight actually. This is what you're seeing here is the Maiden Flight. So I'm holding the camera in my hand whilst flying at the same time, so it's a little bit shaky, but you get the idea. Very, very light wind. This wind was probably about 6, 7, maybe 8 knots onto the slope, so not a lot of wind at all, and there's absolutely no problem in keeping her up. Flew very well. Took a little bit of time for me to get used to rudder elevator again. I've been flying with ailerons for years, so when you're coming out of a turn, it's got a tendency to climb abruptly when you're leveling out, so I had to sort of readjust to flying old style again, but again, not a problem. It's what it's all about, old traditional flying. See, the model is quite lightweight, so it doesn't hold any vertical really when you're pulling up into a stall turn. It does stop quite quickly, so and you need to be a little bit careful. If it's a bit windier than it is in this film clip, it will get taken by the wind, so you need to be a little bit ahead of the model and anticipate it, otherwise if the wind gets under the wing and you haven't got time to correct it, it will sort of flip you over a bit, so you've got to be a bit careful. This is on another day. There's a bit more wind here. It's blowing about 13 or 14 knots here, so more than enough lift to keep her flying, but you're able to throw around a little bit more and fly a bit faster as well.